of the Woolly Ramblings podcast. My name is Nicole, and I am one of the shepherds here at Covered Bridge Farm. I am coming to you today from the central Willamette Valley in western Oregon, where I live on the farm with my husband, my 1-year-old son, and my mom. This is a video podcast focused mainly on knitting and spinning, but I will also share content related to my life as a shepherd. Welcome to episode 2. We have made it to an episode 2. If you watched my last podcast, you'll already know what I'm referring to, that we've made several attempts to get this podcast off the ground, and episodes 2 have never either been uploaded or filmed. So, this is really exciting. Happy New Year. I know we're a good way into January now, but just the same. And I hope all of you had a lovely holiday season, however you celebrate, if you celebrate. That being said, welcome again. I am really excited to have you joining me again. If you are a returning viewer or if you're a first-time viewer, welcome. I'm so excited that you've stumbled across my corner of the knitting podcast world. I don't have a tremendous amount of knitting and spinning content to share with you, but I have made a bunch of progress on one of my whips for knitting, and I actually have some spinning content. And as I promised in the last episode, I will also share a little bit of an introduction to our farm in this episode. So, with that being said, I guess let's just move on forward and start with what I am wearing. So today I am wearing the Frozen Silver, which is a shawl pattern by Suvi Samola. I hope I'm saying that not too poorly. And it is a asymmetrical shawl. The majority of the shawl is knit in garter, but it has these lovely texture patterns, which I don't know if you can see while it's all folded up. I'll take it off here in a second. But you can see there's different texture patterns to break up the shawl pattern and adds a lot of interest. This by far has probably got to be one of my favorite knits ever. And I think it's a combination of the pattern as well as the yarn that I used. So I'll take it off so you can get a better look at it. Let's see how. So like I said, it is an asymmetrical shawl, and it has garter, this kind of lattice crisscross cable, and then this kind of slip stitch, which I think is the same pattern in the Nurtured Sweater by Andrea Mowry. So that's the shawl. I knit the shawl in some farm yarn that I purchased from another local farmer. They actually live just down the road from us, about 15 minutes. So this yarn is, oh dear, I have a really bad shadow. I didn't realize that. I might have to move things around a little bit. Let's see. I think that is a little bit better. Hopefully it's not too dark. I'll try to think this through for the next episode. So anyways, as I was saying, this yarn is a yarn that I got from Crabtree Farm. And it is a 100% merino yarn, non-superwashed, raised directly on their farm. Like I said, it's about 15 minutes away from our farm. And raising merinos is quite a feat here in this part of Oregon because we have a very, very wet climate. Probably about 9 months out of the year, it is raining on some level. We're actually having a big storm right now, so it's not raining yet, but I can see that it's blowing in by the trees. Anyways, so it's quite a feat. Merinos and other fine wool breeds do a little bit better in drier, more arid climates, and so there can be a lot of struggles with keeping the sheep as well as their fleeces in good condition in climates. This yarn is incredibly soft. This to me is luxurious. And I worked with alpaca and fibers like that. Granted, no, this is not an Angora rabbit soft, but it is very luxurious, and I would say it is more luxurious than some of the alpaca that I have knitted with. It is, I think it was a DK yarn, And combined with the garter and these different texture patterns, it just makes this really dense and squishy fabric. And it's just so lovely. I hardly wear this because it has almost this level of luxuriousness that's not just for going out every day. But it is by far one of my favorites, and I could not bother to dye it because it was just so stunning in the white. So that being said, let me throw this back on and we'll get started with some of my works in progress. Alright, so let's get on to my knitting works in progress. I only have one thing that I've been working on. As I mentioned in the last podcast, I am very monogamous about my knitting, so it's not likely you're going to see a huge variety of different projects, or I guess I should say a variety of different whips going on at once on this podcast. But I do have a lot that I have done on this project and I'm super excited. So this is my stave sweater, and before I show you where I'm at now, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I proceeded after last episode. So in last episode, if you have watched that episode, you will already know that I had kind of hit a roadblock with the sweater. And it wasn't because of anything in the pattern or any mistake I had made, other than the fact that the colors I had chosen did not have as high of a contrast as I thought they did. It affected the overall look of the sweater in a way that kind of defeated the pattern. So in the last episode, I said that I was going to do some swatching. And originally I had planned on swatching in the colorwork pattern, and I am fairly new at colorwork, and so I wasn't very comfortable with converting in the round colorwork to a flat swatch. So I just laid out my color options in some swatches. So these are some very messy swatches, so please don't mind that. I just did them in a quick garter and laid them all out next to each other. The ends aren't woven in. It's not pretty for the podcast, but I think you'll get the idea. So this is, let's see if you can see this without my strings in the way. This is, hopefully this will focus, yes. So this lighting isn't the best. I don't know, maybe once I edit this on the computer you'll see, because you can, so there are 5 colors here. The bottom, without my other light that I had on that was creating a glare, you can't really see. Actually today you can't see the full 5 colors. I actually filmed this episode earlier and you could see all the colors a lot better. But there are 5 colors here, and you can, I think you can kind of, there, if I angle it, you can kind of see it. There you go. Top is the white, middle gray, the light gray is from Cocoa, the middle gray is from Rex, the charcoal gray is from Aurora, and the bottom black is from Eclipse. So this is our farm yarn. It is the collection I call Shades of Romney. And I chose this name and made this a collection in my mind because I think a lot of times Romneys and a lot of other breeds that come in natural shades are overlooked for their ability to have such a wide range of colors. Some breeds kind of sift themselves to the top as being known for having a huge range of colors, but most breeds have a lot of ranges of colors. If I sat down and had every single sheep in our flock had their fleece made into yarn, you'd probably be surprised at the wide variety of colors. So this collection, while only has 5 colors, but I think it gives you a nice range of colors that represent the breed. So anyways, for the sweater, in last week's episode, I was using these 3 colors. And in this lighting, you can still kind of see, you can actually see what I mean. There you go. That there's not a lot of contrast between the black and the charcoal gray. But you can see the contrast between the medium gray. And so I had knit up the color work, and it didn't pop. It looked like I had a huge stripe of black with this random middle stripe of medium gray in the color at the very top in this color work, and it just didn't look right. So I went ahead and made another swatch of what the colors that I was thinking of putting next to each other, just to make sure they all worked. And there you can see that the contrast is much better. You can see the stripe, the line between each color change. The white, the stripe between the white and the lightest gray is not super critical because the white is actually used in the color work that is used in the stripes. It's not its own stripe. So I went ahead and ripped all the way back to the twisted rib and restarted the color work in these colors. Turned out much better. So let me grab the sweater. So this is the sweater now. And as you can see, I have completed the color work. And you can see the changes in the color work. I'm trying not to let it focus on me. But it looks much better. It looks more like what it's supposed to look like. And as you can see, I have actually finished the body. And I have started on the first sleeve over here. And I will also be adding, the pattern has you add, I believe, a ribbed collar here at the neckline. And this pattern, a smaller version, will be at the end of each sleeve. So I've made a lot of headway on this project. I might have a finished project by the next episode, depending on when I film. I had wanted to film more than once a month, but once a month might be the most feasible for me. So this is what it looks like, and I'm super happy with it. Alright, so there's not much to talk about other than the swatches that I had just mentioned, and I'm really happy with it. It's quite big. I am knitting the 2T size, in case you are wondering. This is a child's sweater. I didn't mention, so this is the Stave sweater by Carol Feller. I don't think I mentioned that. I was just so excited to get into it and show you. So that's it for knitting content. I have been working exclusively on this. Like I said, I'm pretty monogamous about my knitting. So next I have spinning, and I actually have a finished object for spinning. Well, almost finished. I have to set the twist still, but once I've set the twist, it will be a finished object. So this, it is on my nitty knotty still. This is my finished object, and I'm hoping it'll focus on the yarn and not my face. I should have scanned this up to show you. Let's do it. So, I'll just talk while I'm doing this. This is, this is some Horn Dorset, which I spun. It's from our farm, so it's a Moorit brown, which is the natural color, so it's a natural brown. This is a true brown, and there you go. Now maybe it'll focus. My lighting is awful today. There you go. Now you can kind of see it. And so these are singles. Yes, I have not plied them, and no, I'm not going to be plying them. So this is how it's going to be. And I spun this for a particular project. This is for the Woodlark shawl, which is a pattern by Lerica of the Fiber Tales podcast. And I decided to spin this as singles. I've never spun any yarn to leave as singles before, so I am a little bit nervous. I think it has turned out actually pretty well, considering I think it looks pretty balanced for a single. I was a little bit more worried about how it was going to look. So I still need to set the twist by washing it, and that will probably take out more of a little bit of the kinks. But one thing I had wanted to talk about, and I was really expecting it to look worse when I took it off the nitty knotty, was that another way you can help balance a yarn that you're leaving as singles is to felt the yarn. And my problem is is that horned Dorset, as well as many other down type breeds, does not like to wet felt. It may felt a little bit, or it may not felt at all. And a lot of our customers who have worked with Dorset have found both that they could wash it in the washing machine, and I've even thrown a pair of my knitted Dorset socks in the dryer and they still fit. They didn't shrink like 10 sizes. So I was thinking it's not gonna hurt it if I attempt to felt it, because if it doesn't felt, oh well, I guess it doesn't felt. But because it was actually looking so good, I don't know if I'm going to actually attempt that. We will see. I will let you know in the next episode. I will revisit this. So this is going to be one of the colors in my woodlark shawl. And the woodlark shawl was designed in the Urso Mouton base. So Urso Yarn Company on their Mouton base, which is a pulled Dorset and nylon blend yarn. And that yarn was a single yarn too. It wasn't plied. So that's why I decided to spin it this way. Plus, the colors that I had, I didn't have a whole lot of roving for this. So I knew if I plied it, I wouldn't have a lot of yardage. I haven't figured out how much yardage this has yet, which will kind of determine which color I use it for, if I use it for the main color or the contrasting color. But I am really excited to knit this shawl. So you'll probably be seeing that very soon once I finish the next, my whip for spinning, which is the second color for the woodlark shawl. And this is a white horned Dorset. And it's a little bit of a different spin. These two kind of have a little bit of a different handle. And this one has a little bit longer staple. So this will be, depending, again, whenever I figure out the yardage, I'll figure out if it'll be the main or the contrasting. But, so this yarn was from our Dorset U Poppy, and this is yarn, or this roving that I'm spinning is from, I believe this is our new use. I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember who we used in that last roving. I can't remember if it was Cookie and Doodle. I'm not sure. I'd have to look. I'm starting with roughly a 3-ounce ball. That's what I'm using for this, and we'll see how much yardage that gets. I will have to use a different roving if I need more white. So I think the other one I have is an older roving, which I originally was spinning. Actually, that was the yarn I showed in the last episode, the white that I showed. That was the Rolly? I think that's the ewe that was in that roving. Her fleece was in that roving, at least, not her. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on right now. So I'm really excited about that. I can't wait to get this cast on. But I have to make myself finish the nurtured sweater before I can cast on, or at least focus on this. So that's it for knitting and spinning. So I guess we're going to move on to my little rambling segment, and in this episode we're going to be introducing you to the farm a little bit. I think I'm going to try to insert some b-roll and some older photos over the top of me, so you don't have to just sit here and watch me talking without anything to look at besides me. So we'll see how that goes. So where to start? I feel a little weird because I don't know where to start, but to start, I guess I'll give you a summary of what Coverbridge Farm is. So we are a family farm located in Western Oregon, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. We have, we raise sheep. That's what we do. We don't have any other types of animals on the farm. My husband would love to get cattle. Cattle is something he did growing up, and his family still does. So maybe someday we will have some sort of cows. but right now it's just sheep. And we raise two breeds of sheep. We raise the Romneys, which, like I was showing you, is the swatches, the sweater that I'm working on, that's Romney. And then we also raise horn Dorsets, which is what I was just showing you for my spinning. And I put the date on the start of Covered Bridge Farm as roughly September 2007. Now, a little bit of background is that we had already had sheep. Sheep was nothing new to us. My mom has been raising sheep since she was a teenager, and so I was born on a sheep farm, and sheep have just always existed in my life. So it's not like one day we went out and said, let's get some sheep, and in 2007 we went and got sheep for the first time. So we already had sheep, and we actually had the base for our Dorset flock already on the farm prior to 2007. But the start of what is today Covered Bridge Farm started in 2007 when I purchased my first Romney ewe. And the start of Covered Bridge Farm started because of 4-H project you can do. And so when I was old enough to enter 4-H, which is when you are 10, so roughly 4th grade, I didn't initially start with sheep. I started with the fiber arts. So I learned to knit first and spin. I talk a little bit about that in the last episode, so you can go back and watch that if you want to know a little bit more about my knitting and spinning journey. But sheep was always on the horizon. I was going to do sheep. So we kind of spent that first year letting me research what kind of sheep I wanted to have as my project. And a lot of kids will do a short project. So they will get their sheep in the spring. It will be a lamb that they will raise out for the summer and sell at auction. And Mom wanted me to do something a little bit beyond the breeds that you typically see for that type of project. And so she wanted me to pick a different kind of breed. And she gently guided me and led me to the Romneys. There are a lot of Romneys where we live, so it was pretty easy to get my hands on a Romney ewe. So in September of 2007, I purchased a little Romney ewe who I fondly called Clover, and she is the matriarch of pretty much the entire natural colored Romney side of our flock. Like I mentioned, we have Romneys. Romneys can be white or natural colored. Natural colored can be a range of any sorts of black, grays. There are Moorit Romneys. I don't have any, but there is a lovely farm here in Oregon who does. But that being said, she was my first ewe. She was a lamb when I got her, coming up on her first birthday. Then a few months later, I think it was January, we got my second ewe, and that was given to us by the same breeder that we purchased Clover from. And she had a little lamb who had been born to a ewe. She wasn't a ewe that the breeder had wanted to be bred yet. She was a little bit young, and so the lamb needed to be a bottle lamb. And so we one day met up with her and picked her up and brought her to the farm, and she's fondly known as Bitsy. So those were my first two ewes. They were both natural colored Romneys, and they are the start of my flock. Then the following year, I applied and was the recipient of the Oregon Romney Breeders starter flock, which was a youth starter flock, which entailed me receiving two ewes. I received a white Romney ewe and another natural colored Romney ewe, and they were both bred. The white ewe, actually, when I got her, already had her lamb. The shepherd who donated her wanted to make sure I had a ewe lamb, because when you have bred a ewe, you cannot guarantee that the lambs are going to be ewes. It became the start of my white flock and an additional ewe to my natural colored flock. So that was my start of Covered Bridge Farm. Then in 2000, I'm I'm going to have to make a notation if I have to get this wrong, but I think it was 2009 or 10 that we had our first natural colored Dorset born. And so our original ewes for our Dorset were polled Dorsets. We have since shifted to horn Dorsets, which I'll get into a little bit of why we did that in a sec. But we had a flock of white ewes. We used a white horned ram on my ewes, or on our ewes, and surprise, we had a natural colored lamb, and we had never heard of a natural colored Dorset. So we called up the breeder and said, hey, is this normal? Like, we got a lamb it's not white. And she assured us that yes, it does happen. It is not considered ideal, but it does occasionally happen. So, being interested in the fiber arts, we decided to play with this project. And here we are. We have a flock of natural colored Dorsets in addition to our white horn Dorsets. The color is typically a disqualification. So we decided to develop this. And it has been a project, like I said, it started I think 2010. So we have been doing this for many years. So our original ewe was a gray, and they come in this color. I'll see if I can put a picture up here. They come in a pattern that we call mouflon, and it is a gray, and it has tan points and a white blaze. They have these tan eye bars that run kind of right perpendicular down their nose. So it's a pretty fun looking color, and it's like a color that's pretty common in a lot of breeds, and it's a pretty old pattern because it was really easy for primitive animals to be able to hide in their natural surroundings when they would have been wild. Then a few years later, I had purchased from the breeder that we had our white ewes from. They had a couple spotted colored lambs. So some of them are that mouflon color. Others, while they're also mouflon, they have white spots, so they look piebald. And so we purchased a ewe from them, and a few years later we did a tight breeding because we were working with a really small gene pool to try to bring this color out. And all of a sudden we had two twin lambs born. One was black, and then the other, we had been doing some reading, and I caught on and thought, Mom, does this lamb look like it is brown? It looks like it might actually be brown. And it turned out she was our first Moorit, and no one knew that Moorits existed in the Dorset breed at all. So that was another complete surprise. So this ewe is a descendant of that first Moorit ewe, and so we played with that and were able to pull out some more Moorits. So we now have a flock that consists of white registered horned ewes, horned Moorit ewes, and horned gray, black, various shades of the gray and black ewes. So that is how both breeds in our flock started. In 2010, we started our Etsy shop, which is our online store, and at that time we didn't have when we originally started, we thought, oh, we're gonna have enough wool to spin with, it's gonna be great. We quickly discovered that with a heavy wool producing breed such as the Romney, we were already overrun with wool very, very quickly, and so we needed an outlet to sell. And so Mom started exploring. She found out about different options for added value products, having yarn done, having roving done, and thus started our online shop. And at that time there weren't a lot of fleeces or fiber products on Etsy. Since then there are a lot more people who jumped on Etsy as their platform for selling yarn and roving, but that's what we did. And so we started going to fiber festivals, having booths, farm booths, which we do when it's not COVID, and that's what we do. So let's see. Today we have a flock of combined breeds, roughly about 40 head of ewes. This does not include any replacement ewe lambs that we keep on, any rams that we keep. So this is just our mature ewe flock, is roughly about 40 ewes. And we, like I said, go to fiber festivals when there are fiber festivals, and we have our online shop. Then 2 years ago, we had the really exciting start of the Shave 'em to Save 'em program. So it's really hard to say without continuing a sentence saying that. So the Shave 'em to Save 'em program is a program started by the Livestock Conservancy, and this was a lot of why we shifted strictly to the horned Dorsets versus a combination of horned Dorsets and polled Dorsets because of this program. The horned Dorset breed is a breed that is considered endangered. I believe they fall into the threatened category, which is the second highest category. And promotes, so the Livestock Conservancy promotes having farmers and shepherds raise these breeds because they are so they're endangered and potentially could be lost forever. So they decided 3 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, at the end of this year it'll be 3 years, but 2 years ago they applied for a grant, they got a grant, and they started this program to help educate fiber artists, knitters, spinners, weavers, crocheters, whatever you name it, felters, to use wool from these breeds. And a lot of these breeds are not breeds that typically are thought to be wool breeds, such as the Shropshire, the Southdown, let's see, the Oxford, the horned Dorset, and then there's breeds that are very unique to the United States, such as the Gulf Coast Native, the Navajo Churro, which that's a little bit more common, the Shetlands on the list. So you have different tiers of endangerment. So we jumped on the bandwagon and got involved with that and being a fiber provider, which really influenced our selection to going strictly for horned Dorset animals. And the horned Dorset and the polled Dorset are very, very similar. The polled Dorset was a breed developed from the horned Dorset, and two different places developed the polled Dorset at the same time using slightly different methods. But because horns are very, they're hard on equipment, they're hard on you. I cannot name how many bruises I get from my ewes, and it's not that they mean to really stick me with their horns, it's just that they have them and they're a little bit wider and they're gonna get to their food. Dorsets love food. But so they have fallen out of favor for their counterpart, which have pretty much all the same features. They can breed out of season, which is a really unique trait. They have really fast growing lambs, and but their wool isn't really used. So that's how our horned flock really became strongly a horned flock. We got involved with that. I'm not sure if that covers everything. Like I said, I am one of the shepherds. My mom and I co-shepherd together. Like I said, this started out in 2007. It's been how many years? 13, 14 years. And since then, my husband has come into the picture. He's been incredibly supportive. He does a lot of the manual labor, the fix-it jobs, those kind of things. So moving hay around, if I need him to catch a sheep or hold a sheep, he gets that job. And my mom is really into the husbandry. She knows a lot. Like I said, she's been raising sheep since she's a teenager. So there's a lot of knowledge that she has that I don't have yet. And now I have my son who will be raised in this environment. But yeah, that's all of us, and that's who makes up the farm. So I hope I covered everything. I know there's more that I could talk about, but I think that's a nice introduction for you without making this episode too extremely long. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, definitely pop them below in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them, maybe in a future episode. And with that said, I think I'm going to end the podcast here. thank you all for joining me. If you'd like to keep up with me during the times I'm not podcasting, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Covered Bridge Farm, and you can also find me on Ravelry as Woolly Ramblings. So until next time, happy knitting and happy spinning, and I will see you here again, hopefully not too long.